Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to an episode of the Life of Pi with me, your host, aka Call Sign Sunshine. Joining me tonight, I have a very special guest, Mr. Matthew, aka Call Sign Cheeks. And tonight, we are covering the 2022 blockbuster of the summer, none other than Top Gun Maverick. It's going to run you about an hour, 59 and 41 seconds, I think is what we just finished with. A little action adventure starring Tom Cruise, Glenn Powell, Bill Pullman's kid, I forget his name off the top of my head, Val Kilmer's in it. So let's just kind of, like, it's a movie we've been waiting on, about 34 years in the making, I believe is what?
It's 36. Could have been sooner, but it is the longest span between the original and the sequel.
So, we've waited for this movie for a long time. We got delayed, about 2.5, 3 years because of COVID and post-production and all that crap, so they kept pushing it back and pushing it back. But, May 27th, we finally got it. One of the greatest cinematic adventures of all time, bar none. So, this movie starts off with Tom Cruise living in the Mojave Desert with apparently no air conditioning and in the middle of an abandoned air base. And he has the old Kawasaki, is that what he's driving?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so his whole thing is he has to do like a secret stealth mission and get a stealth bomber to go Mach 10. Is that correct?
Yep.
Mach 10. Mm-hmm. So of course Maverick does what Maverick does, and he pushed it 10.1. It explodes.
I think he hit 10.3.
10.3.
Yeah.
And so it explodes, and Ed Harris is there. He's badass. Ed Harris is great in everything he does. Basically tells him, you're going back to Top Gun. He's just like, you gotta be kidding me. And so, overall, this whole movie is just an amazing ride from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got all the actors, and we'll have some fun facts we'll start with. So some of the things I've been reading about, and then of course Matt has some facts as well, is that the actors actually got to pick their own call signs, which I think is pretty freaking cool.
Absolutely.
So that's pretty dope. The bar Hard Deck, which is owned by Penny. So Jennifer Connelly's character is referenced literally twice in like 5 or 6 words in the first one. So the first time we went to see this, I had no idea who this person was. I had to look it up, and I'm a massive original Top Gun fan itself. And I looked it up. Apparently she's the Rear Admiral's daughter that Maverick did a flyover with. And they talk about in the original, I think, one time with Meg Ryan in the bar for the sing Great Balls of Fire. And it's like, so you're going to give me one line. They're like, you know what, 36 years later, let's bring her back in.
Mm-hmm. And what was really crazy was that, what I read was that when they referenced that, she was actually a minor. She was actually 16 years old, which is kind of creepy. But yeah, that is how that character comes into the movie.
So we get introduced to a lot of new characters in this film. John Hamm's in it, call sign Cyclone, I believe.
Yep.
I forget the other guy's name, the actor. His call sign is Warlock, which I think is one of the coolest call signs that there is that they have.
Yep.
And of course you have all the new hot shot pilots. You got Hangman, Fanboy, Phoenix, Bob, Coyote. So they're the best of the best. Then of course you have Goose's kid, Bradley Bradshaw. And his call sign is Rooster. So apparently he wanted to stay in the same family animal range of call signs. His dad was Goose, and he wanted to be a rooster. Mm-hmm. So of course this whole movie, as you guys know by now, is based around Tom Cruise basically pulling Rooster's papers and preventing him from flying 4 years sooner than he did. So Rooster has held a grudge against Maverick for God only knows how many years. But we find out the reason that Maverick pulled the papers was that Meg Ryan didn't want her son to fly. And they talk about how she died, so she wasn't back. They killed her. Kelly McGinnis just didn't want to be in it, I guess. So the new love interest, Penny, so we have to have somebody for Tom Cruise to hang out with. She comes back as the main character. She's got a sailboat. They go out in a sailboat together, which I think...
It's pointless.
It's one of the most pointless scenes in the entire movie. Some people love it. I have nothing against Jennifer Connelly. I want that to be stated. I have no beef with her. I just could have given two shits about their love story. Give me the action. Give me the pilots flying fast, high, and blowing shit up. Mm-hmm. So a lot of cool stuff about this movie. The hard deck bar that she owns is an actual bar that they modeled after the real bar in San Diego. So they built it down. They kind of built it on a beach down the road from the real one. They went in to scout the location, try and film there, but I guess the angles were too small. You couldn't fit a full film crew in there, as you guys know. There's hundreds of people in a film crew, dozens of cameras going. So it was just too small. So they built their own makeshift hard deck on the beach in San Diego on North Island, which I think is pretty sick.
Yep. They did a good job recreating it too.
Yeah. Because, I mean, if you guys look it up, there's plenty of YouTube videos out there at this point. You look it up on YouTube, they got the planes hanging from the ceiling. It looks like it's almost like a horseshoe-shaped bar. You got the sign that says, if you disrespect the bar owner or a lady or have your phone in the bar, you buy everybody a drink and a bell. And you look it up, that stuff is in the real bar, which is very cool. But the meat of this whole thing is Maverick gets called back to teach a class again. And this mission is unlike any other he's ever done in his life. The jets are faster, stronger, quicker, whatever you want to call it. And he has to teach these hot shots that are the best of the best to basically fly a mission that is damn near impossible, that they've never flown their jets like this before. And of course, Hangman is played by Glenn Powell. He is an absolute ass on this movie, but he is fantastic in his role.
Yep, absolutely. He does a great job. He comes in, and what I liked about his character was he has that cockiness that, Iceman had in the original Top Gun. And one of the things about not just his character, but this movie specifically, was I enjoyed how they didn't overdo it and bring parts of the first one in. They sprinkled it in the perfect spots too.
Yeah, like, for instance, like, the first reference you get, there's only, like, a handful. The first reference you get...
Well, the first is the opening scene.
It's the opening scene, you get the motorcycle.
It's literally... No, the opening scene from the aircraft carrier, it's the same exact
Oh, yeah. That, like, we were actually... When we went to see it opening night, it kicks in, you have the main title, it's, like...
It says on March 3rd, 1969, the U.S. Navy establishes an elite school for the top 1% of its pilots. Its purpose was to teach the lost art of aerial combat and to ensure that the handful of men who graduated were the best fighter pilots in the world. The only thing that they changed this type was they fixed the typo inshore to ensure, and they changed it from men to men and women because, as we know, Phoenix is the only female pilot in this movie.
And go ahead and give your fun fact you found about Phoenix's character before we came on here.
So, like Paul said, that all the actors were able to choose their own call signs to make it personalized to them. She chose Phoenix. Phoenix is actually the only pilot in the whole movie that crashes her aircraft.
And she's a female.
And she's a female, but it doesn't matter.
No, I'm just saying she's the only female pilot.
Yeah. Regardless, she crashes her plane, and it kind of signifies that the Phoenix rises again from its ashes, and she actually gets selected to go on the final mission too, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah, and the one thing me and Matt were actually debating was that when it comes to like pilots, as most of us know by now, you have to have like absolute perfect vision. You can't have anything wrong with you. But yet, Bob is a backseater and he wears glasses, so I don't know if anybody is military or anything, if that makes a difference, if you can wear glasses, but I feel like they would bend from the G-forces. Even if you're not a pilot, I feel like that would be a hazard. Maybe I could be wrong, but I feel like the pressure on your body would bend those frames pretty easily.
Yeah,
they can bend
like
a plane.
Literally, aviator style, just thin metal frames. They're going to bend backwards on your face, even at 3 Gs, 4 Gs, and that's like even a low amount of G-force that they're pulling.
Because I feel like if a plane can bend with the G-force, pieces of plastic will bend as well.
Oh, yeah.
But Bob's character is great. Bob's call sign is Bob, which I thought was hilarious.
And the way they introduce him, I think it's the greatest part, because he plays this, I don't want to call him nerdy, but like...
He's a nerd.
you know,
he's kind of a
antisocial, dorky, right?
Yeah.
Dorky's a great way. One of the cool things that I also found was that Tom Cruise likes to name something or someone Bob in pretty much all of his movies that he's done in the last 27 years.
I did not know this, so I'm going to have to go back through because I have several of those movies here in my collection. I'm going to go back and check that out.
Yep, within the last 20 years or so, he's had something called Bob in one of his movies. I want to talk about the scene with that test plane that they did.
Okay, yeah, the Night Star.
Yep.
Dark Star, something like that.
Yep. So, what's really cool is that they have this thing where they go in test stages, so they have to hit Mach 9, and then the overall goal is to hit Mach 10, but they start to get shut down, and Maverick's doing his Maverick thing, and he says, screw it, let's go, and as Ed Harris is pulling up, who's one of the what was he?
Rear admirals.
Yeah, who's there to shut down the project. He gets in the plane and taxis off and actually starts going off down the runway.
Because he knows if he doesn't, then the program is dead and everybody he works with is losing their jobs.
Yep. So the cool part about that was that shack, that guard shack, your gate shack at the end of the runway. Like you had told me earlier, they had that one shot to get that scene because of all the other planes that were taken off. Like, this is a live Air Force base. And the force of that jet lifting the roof off was absolutely incredible, just to show you the sheer force. Because that's not just like, plywood. That's a huge built concrete roof, and it just lifts it like a Lego. Yeah,
like I said, I was listening to, people in our podcast stuff, and like a Navy guy who was like kind of in charge of like all of the aviation stuff. He told them what they can do and not do, what is safe and not safe, how to fly the jets and everything. But he's basically in charge of everything. Site locations. He was there the day they did that shot, and he said that the guard shack, it was built like a real guard shack. Like, it had air conditioning, lights, like walkie-talkies, clipboards, pens, pencils, everything a guard shack would need. And he said the only thing that prevented the roof from actually flying off and literally killing people, because if it flies off, it's going to catch the wind from that force and fly back. It's going to fly right at the camera people and kill them from the force that would come off. He goes, it was held on by like an inch, half an inch, like electrical wire that they had from the guard shack. This is the only thing that held it on there, so it didn't fly off. Because he said he was there when they were filming. He was behind the camera with all the camera people. He goes, my first thought was, oh shit, we're gonna die. And we saw a lift. He goes, and it held. And he said the fact that if you watch real closely also in that scene, you see a couple extras that they're the drivers for Ed Harris. They kind of duck. That's not supposed to happen. And they told Ed Harris kind of like, this was going on. Ed Harris goes, no problem. They're like, just don't move, be as still as possible. And Ed Harris doesn't flinch an inch, and these other stunt guys are kind of ducking out of the way. And that just shows how amazing and locked in Ed Harris was for this role. He just was not worried about it. He just stood there, took the sonic boom going over him, and was just like, what's up?
Yeah, because it's not like it's, he's being cleared by 1,000 feet. It's probably 100 feet.
It was like 100, 130.
Oh my God, that's just intense. The cool part about that plane was that their test goal now that they've taken off is to hit Mach 10.
Yeah.
Do you know how fast Mach 10 is?
I looked it up, but I didn't write it down for some reason.
So, if you are going Mach 10, you're going 2.1 miles a second. A second. That is insane. So, right now, the fastest manned aircraft is the SR-71 Blackhawk made by Lockheed Martin. And it can fly just over Mach 3 right now.
Which is moving. That's a helicopter. That's hauling.
It's not a helicopter, it's a plane.
Oh, it's a helicopter.
No.
Oh, that's my bad. I misheard you. I was like, that's a fast helicopter, dude.
It's like the stealth bomber in a sense. So, right now we can fly just over.
Yes, folks, by the way, we are sweating because I'm filming in my living room, and we turn off the air conditioning because it'd be way too loud. So, we are sweating, but we're here for you, so we turned it off. Hope you appreciate it.
Yeah, so they actually have, NASA has their what was it, the X-43 scramjet,
Okay.
and that can actually fly 9.6 or Mach 9.6, which is the fastest unmanned aircraft in the world. Now, you can say that the space shuttle can fly so much faster, but that's because they're not flying in an atmosphere; they're flying in outer space.
Yeah, and that's completely different.
Which, to think that a space shuttle, this big bus, can fly faster than Mach 9.6.
Like
just
6
insane.
buses. Yeah. Yeah, it's... So, and like, another thing, again, like, looking up and doing research on the movie, the one thing that I loved and appreciated, I mean, the first one to me holds a very special place in my heart. I very much am a massive fan about everything about the original one. Love the original one. But you can tell a lot of the stuff they did in the original was all green screen. But again, it's the 80s, so you have the technology you have. Now with the new technology, Tom Cruise did a great job. He told me, he goes, if we're going to do this, we need to do it right. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have these actors in the planes doing all the flips and turns. So, like, when you see those actors like in the planes and you see them, their face distortion and the heavy breathing, all that is not acted. That is completely real. They are doing their lines, pulling 3 to 4 Gs while doing their lines. They had to do, I think it was like a 3 to 4 week flight course just to get their bodies ready to be able to just say their lines.
And Tom Cruise put together an actual course for them to take just to get ready for this movie. Yeah,
so like Tom Cruise took this very, very personally because he's a massive aviation guy. He has several of his own planes. So they said one of Navy's big requirements was that Tom Cruise was not allowed to fly any of the jets and to not touch any of the controllers or they would be shut down immediately. And one of the cool things that I kind of found out about, again, through like just, reading and watching people's videos and stuff, was that there was live classes going on, at the Top Gun class school. They had live classes going on, so they had to pull people on their free time to film these scenes. So they only have sometimes 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours to film these jets. Because that's a lot of taxpayer money. It's the pilot's time, their free time when they're not learning. Because they're pulling 11, 12-hour days at these schools some days. And then they're like, oh, hey, we take these guys up. And that's...
And those actors were going up for 90-minute intervals, too.
Yeah.
They go up a few times a day.
Yeah.
And what I found funny was that... Well, not funny, because I know I would be one of those ones that would be, rolling all over the place.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The majority of all those actors would consistently throw up every single day. I couldn't even imagine what that would feel like. Even though I would love it, I know you absolutely would give your life to go fly in a jet.
It's my dream to like fly in a jet for just one time. So if you guys know anybody, you let me know. You hit me up.
They'll go.
I will go 100%. I'll pass out, puke, pee my pants. I don't care. I want to go. But yeah, these actors, they got put through a lot, man. They got put through the ringer with this. I know, like, the guy that was in charge of everything was one of the head, basically he's in charge of the Blue Angels. So they brought him in to fly he actually flew the jet, and the very first thing you see was he's, like, the lead guy of the Blue Angels. They only had him for a day, because then he had to go back out to do more shows with the Blue Angels. So they had him for, like, 2 or 3 hours that day, and they're like, you have one shot, he has to go. And then that was, you literally had the one shot, and that's what you got in the very first scene. And from that very first scene, it was just like, just go. And oh man, this movie was just, everything about it was just
I love the
amazing.
camera angles. I love that they put the cameras in the jets. What I found interesting about
36 GoPros in each cockpit.
It was unreal, all those 6K cameras and everything. The thing that I found interesting was that the actors had to be the ones who turned the cameras on and off the entire time they were shooting.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
The directors actually weren't able to see what was in the cockpits until they got back, landed, and downloaded everything.
That's crazy. Okay, I didn't know that. That's a lot of... That's one more thing you have to do as an actor while you're pulling 3 Gs. Hey, hit this button over here.
Yeah.
Flip
a switch.
Flip a switch. Do your lines. Breathe heavy. Don't pass out. Don't puke.
Look cool. They had to do their own makeup or readjust their makeup as they're going in the planes.
Oh my.
Which was... It's just the whole movie. When you think about what it takes to create a movie.
Yeah.
And you and I have made our own movie.
Yes, we have. It will be on YouTube very shortly.
You know, what it takes just to create a movie, not just a blockbuster, but to think about what went into this movie specifically. Mm-hmm. Not just millions, tens of millions, it was hundreds of millions of dollars put into this movie. But then on the outset, to be one of the first movies to make $1 billion.
Yeah.
$1 billion, not over. Oh, it took a year, or it took two.
It took like
took
2 months.
A couple months to make $1 billion.
Yeah, and I think they said the cost per hour to rent these jets was $11,234 and like 16 cents. I think it's somewhere right around there.
That's very accurate or very precise.
I think it's somewhere right around there. Which is insane, and I guess like the IRS and the tax people were like, no, we want that 16 cents, like that's the government's money. So, and I guess like when like these cruise travel guys, like you have to you're basically renting out damn your entire city. Like when they went to Fighter Town over in San Diego, like there's parts of San Diego where they rented out 2 full hotels just for the crew. Mm-hmm. And of course, the actors had their own nice swanky places, but the rest of the crew got put up in these hotels, and they rented out entire hotels, like dozens, like 2. I think they said 2 full hotels for the entire cast and crew.
That's crazy.
You think about it, you know, makeup, wardrobe, special effects, catering, like all those people, they're traveling with the group in these massive buses, and you have to have rooms. They rent rooms just to put equipment in, to store it, because you can't leave it outside. People steal that crap.
Right.
And so, getting back to the movie, kind of now we're kind of little, you know. Talking about the little facts. Another cool thing that I love that they did with this was that I found out that Miles Teller actually taught himself. Well, I don't know if he taught, but I think he learned how to play the piano, so he could reimagine or redo like the iconic Great Balls of Fire scene from the first one with his dad Goose. So he actually learned how to play the piano just for this role, and he took like singing lessons and stuff so he could sing it. So when you see him playing and singing the piano, that's really him. That's not being fake. And so you think about, he learned how to play the piano, sing, turn the cameras on and off, do his own makeup, learn his lines, not pass out. Like, what they did for this movie was absolutely just, it was just bonkers.
It's unreal.
And it's just like, you have like a real subtle flashbacks. You have the Kawasaki, you have the jacket, the aviators, and of course you have the Great Balls of Fire thing.
You have the F-14 Tomcat at the end of the movie.
Yeah, and of course you have, like, again, all these are real subtle flashbacks. You have a real quick, like, flashback of, like, Goose dying, like, from the original one. And again, it was, like, what, 5-6 seconds? It wasn't, like, a big, drawn-out thing, which I like. So I'm like, they didn't linger on it.
Yep.
And the only thing that I didn't enjoy, I felt like it was kind of forced, was the talk to me Goose. I feel like they tried to force it.
To.
Yeah. And like of course Miles Teller's like, talk to me, Dad. I'm like, I was kind of like, that's like the only line move where I'm just like, it's like, okay.
You wanna bring back Goose in the right way.
Yeah.
But you don't want to overdo it. And I think the directors did a good job at not overdoing it, because they wanted to keep it as always looking forward, progressing the story, not having to always look back.
Yeah. And like, to me, like in these roles, like when it comes to like Rooster and Hangman, those are basically Rooster, Hangman, and Maverick are basically your 3 main characters.
Mm-hmm. And Rooster, Hangman is the Maverick.
Yeah, I was literally gonna say, I was like, Rooster is clearly Maverick, Hangman is clearly Iceman, and then Maverick is the original Maverick. So, like, their relationship, again, is very rocky. And, again, Glenn Powell, amazing job as playing an asshole. I just think he does a fantastic job. And I also love that they kind of had the, back to the intro. They did the original intro again. I remember we looked at each other, we're like, are we in the wrong movie? Because it had the opening credit, and then it went to, like, the slow, like, the, you guys know the song. We won't hum it for you and ruin it. But, like, they're like, it's like you were back on like an aircraft carrier flight deck again, and all these guys are like pulling the hoses, they're doing the flag things, they're all this stuff, and then like you get like what 8-10 seconds of that, and then Danger Zone, jet takes off and Danger Zone kicks in. It's immediately the same opening as the first one, and that gave me little goosebumps. Like, I have goosebumps right now just talking about it. This movie gets me so fucking hyped. I cannot wait to buy this movie and watch it 1,000 times. Like I did the original one. I watched the original one so much, I had to buy a new copy because my first one stopped working. Mm-hmm. I'm almost to the point where I can start quoting this one. I've only seen it, I think, 3 times now. So I'm obsessed with this movie. If you guys haven't seen it, I don't know why you're watching this, but I appreciate it. Go see it. It's so good. Mm-hmm. So let's flip over to kind of like the another iconic thing they kind of did, but they kind of didn't do, was the beach sports scene.
I thought, I was so happy they didn't do the volleyball scene.
Yeah, I was hoping
because like I said, you don't want to overdo and make it the original. You want to make it its own movie. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad that they had some sort of beach sports scene, but it was great for them to make a football scene of dogfight football. Offense and defense at the same time. Man, that was...
can we talk about how just shredded Tom Cruise is for like 55 or whatever he is?
Yeah.
I mean, good for him. I mean, I know that sounds weird as a dude saying that, but like, props to what props to do. That guy's in really good shape for being pushing
better
60.
Than me.
So, a cool thing that I found that I'm good. So again, you guys may have already known about this, but another cool thing, like Glenn Powell has said in interviews, aka Hangman, that they filmed that scene. It took him like a day to film that scene. So everybody's like in the gym working out, just literally just losing as much body fat as possible because you want everybody to be ripped and jacked.
And it was this competition of who can be the most shredded.
Yeah, and so they filmed the scene. Everybody's like, "Yeah, we're done. We don't put like extreme diet anymore. Like kill ourselves." And then like 2 days later, Tom Cruise is like, "We need to
After they celebrated, they went out and they got just
tater tots and milkshakes.
Yep, tater tots and milkshakes.
And then Tom Cruise called him next day and goes, "Guys, we have to reshoot that scene." They had to go back to the gym the next day and start working out like 3 to 4 hours a day just to lose like the weight that they put on and get reshredded and shoot the scene all over again. And another subtle thing, I don't know if you caught it, you have the Wolfman Howl.
Yep, right as Hondo. Yep.
He's like, "Ow!" And then of course you have like the Miles Teller like little dance that everybody, all the females are just going nuts about. I personally think like Miles Teller, he kind of had a big surge probably 8-9 years ago, and then he kind of fell off because like I don't know what happened. He got kind of blacklisted for a little while. Mm-hmm. And like the last 2 or 3 years, man, like especially this movie is going to rocket him into like superstardom because like everyone, like he crushed it. Glenn Powell, he's going to be a massive name. Mm-hmm. Coming out pretty soon. And again, all the pilots did just like an awesome job. The one thing that I was telling Matt about, I want a little more of Phoenix's character, because like I love like that badass chick, like I'm with all these dudes, I'm just as good. Like I want that fuck you, I can do what you do. Mm-hmm. I wanted that, like her just to be a little more, give her like she has so few lines. I wanted a little more from her character, because I was very intrigued by her character, because she was just like that first scene.
She didn't take shit from anyone.
Yeah, the first scene where she walks into the bar, she goes, "Oh, Hangman, he'll always leave you hanging out to dry," and he's just talking shit, and she comes right back out. I'm like, yes, get after his ass, like he's an asshole, like get him, like so like I wanted more of her. Unfortunately, we didn't get it, but she did get the last zing in one of the very last lines of the movie. Mm-hmm. It was Hangman like so I think Rooster was like, "Oh, you got your second kill." He's like, "Yeah," and then she goes, "Maverick's got 5 now. He's an ace." And then Hangman's just like rolling his eyes. Like I was just like, "Yes, get him, get him." And it's just like, what if we talk about like, so like the slow build up, then like the last 40 minutes when they're getting ready to go on this mission. The last 40 minutes is like a non-stop, edge of your seat, action packed, just like.
Balls to the wall action, and that's what you want out of this movie. You want to see. You don't you have to have the build up to the story and the love scenes in the background, but you want to watch a movie that has F-18s going, hundreds of miles an hour, banking back and forth, fighting scenes, dogfights, the whole thing. That is what you want out of this movie, and they absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, like one of my favorite shots in the entire movie is where Tom Cruise takes off. You're in the cockpit, you see him going, like, shh, and you see the, like you said, like you see him taking off, and I love you get that visual of him like, another thing that I loved, the only part of the love story, going back to that I actually really thought was funny, was when he's sneaking out the window and he jumps down and
the
lands, and the daughter's like looking at him like, "You're sneaking out, really? This is kind of what a kid's supposed to be doing." She just goes, "Don't break her heart." And he's just kind of like, and it's like, that's normally what happens to a kid in the movie.
It was like a role reversal kind of thing. Let's talk about Val Kilmer. There was no way you could make this movie and not bring Iceman back.
Oh, no way.
You had to bring Iceman back. And the fact that he was the Admiral Kazansky, I think was fantastic, because the entire movie, they always reference, wow, it's Captain Pete Mitchell. How are you still a captain? Like, you
it's one
can't
of life's
get
mysteries,
promoted
sir.
and all that. But I thought that, considering that he has throat cancer and can't speak, that scene, though it didn't last very long, it was only a couple minutes, was done perfectly.
Oh, it was great. And like, he's like, "What do you want to talk about?" And he points, he's like,
I want to talk about
work.
Yeah,
and he just points.
So what do you want to talk about?
And like the fact that he
could
just point at the board, it's so freaking funny. And as we know, like, after like Phoenix and Coyote both almost die, when he gets into the G-Lock from the G-Forces, so that was. So I'm assuming that's pretty accurate. That's probably what happens. You just pass out and you lock up. Your body locks up essentially.
Well, yeah, you pass out, and you are the one controlling the plane. Yeah. And if there's no one controlling the actual plane, the plane's just going to go wherever it wants to go. Yeah. Right? So that's why Mav had to get behind him, throw tone on to create some sort of noise. And once you reach a lower altitude, and you slow down, because if you're going uphill, right, and you're pulling any sort of G-force, you can pass out from that. And when you come down, your plane doesn't have any. Well, they lost both engines, so your plane will slow down. You're still falling incredibly fast, but eventually you will regain blood back into your head and come out of being passed out. But it was one of those things you think, man, is someone gonna die? Because you have Goose die halfway through the first one, and that was my thought, was that there's going to be someone who dies in this film, and someone does die, and it's sad. Yeah. But it's not who you think it's going to be until the scene shows up, and it turns out to be Iceman.
Yeah, and like the Iceman funeral scene was really awesome, because you have the Tom Cruise smashing his wings into it. Into the casket, which is a real well-known thing that the military guys do for each other. And then, of course, you have the flyover, and you have the missing man formation, where the one jet takes off on its own, and the other three stay in formation, which just kind of signifies, a man down, man gone kind of thing. And
going up into the afterlife.
Yeah. So I didn't know if that was. I actually had to look it up, so actually that's kind of cool to find out kind of what that was called. And again, just the last 40 minutes, man, like they take off and the missiles are like coming over them and like riding with them in the jets before they hit their mission is just freaking awesome. I know that's CGI, obviously we didn't fire real missiles, but it's still a really cool shot. And then of course, like we have like Tom Cruise getting basically shot down, and like the fact that Bradley gets shot down. He runs over, he's like, "You okay?" He runs over and just
I'm fine.
Shows him.
What are you doing? What are you doing here?
He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "What were you thinking?" He's like,
"I'm supposed to save you."
He goes, "You told me not to think." He looks at him, he's like, it's just like that whole part, like we were at the theater just erupted and laughed, because it's so funny. You're just like, he's doing what you told him to do, and now you're mad. And the fact that they go back to this airbase, which has been blown up.
Yeah, no runways or anything, and they can find there's the one F-14 Tomcat,
which is the original jet that Tom Cruise flew in the original Top Gun. And like Miles Teller gets in and goes, "Oh my god,
this is a relic."
Yeah, it's just like
no radar, no radio, just absolutely nothing. It was fantastic.
And they take off with like a very shortened runway.
They take off on the taxiway.
It's just, and the fact that you got that scene with Maverick and Goose's kid flying behind him, I feel like that's gonna be a very iconic scene. because it's just like it's a flashback to the original one, which I loved.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, can we talk about that aerial stunt when they're in that Tom?
Good God, yeah, the aerial stunt, which I am still of the opinion that they did not tell
any of the actors.
They did
the
not
pilots
tell.
knew.
Yeah, I feel like they did not tell the actors because those are reactions. If those are acted, that's like Oscar-worthy acting. Because and you guys all know the scene where they're like coming up to the missile lock and the jet just like turns sideways.
Yep.
And then comes
like
literally
up,
goes.
Does this like air stall in a sense? Literally takes its whole entire body, comes back behind, and then gets missile lock on them. It's to see that. To see it in theater.
Well, yeah.
Oh my God. Absolutely incredible, because Miles Teller, I think, had the greatest reaction today.
He just goes, "What the fuck was that?" It's like, it's so great. And speaking of Miles Teller again, another cool thing that's really quick that happens, I guess not really cool, it wasn't supposed to happen, when they're kind of getting zigging around and zagging and all that, there's a part where he kind of comes up out of his harness and he kind of almost hits the ceiling. That is not, it's a real quick shot. That's not supposed to happen. His harness was not strapped in tight enough, and it was too loose, and they captured it, and they thought it looked pretty cool, so they left it in the film to keep it as authentic looking as possible, because that could really happen in real life.
If they had to come, it was going up the bank the first time to go to the inverted dive.
Yeah.
They hit the top, and
he's
up.
like,
yep.
Yeah, and it's just like, and them flying together, and then you think they're gonna die, and it's like, you gotta be kidding me. We got this far. Now you're gonna kill Maverick and Goose's kid together.
Yep. And the thing is that obviously before that whole scene, Mav gets shot down, and you think, did they just kill Maverick in the movie? Like, there's that part of you that says they're not gonna do it. There's no way they can do it. But I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, they killed him off. Like, they literally killed him off.
And then like you literally wait 1.2 seconds. You're like, oh, he's alive. I'm like, give me like a 6-7 second pause. Like let me panic for a little bit next time.
Yep. Keep you on the edge of your seat. Just keep questioning: is it true? Can they do it? Did they actually do it? But overall, the end of that movie, where the thing is that Hangman didn't get selected to do the final mission.
Yeah.
Even though the entire movie, you would just expect him to be part of that final mission.
Yeah, he was not named a team leader.
And I think it's because he was too cocky, and he knew that the only person that would be able to be Mav's wingman was Rooster. You can't have...
Well, because you remember, like, that... Oh, and we just skipped right over one of my favorite parts. The first training session... where these kids are just talking shit about Tom Cruise, just running their mouth, and he just flies up right between them.
Both of them.
Oh man, they're like, oh shit! He's like, fights on, and he just flips up. Oh man, and it's just like, and then of course like you have the part where Hangman leaves his wingman. Tom Cruise goes, oh, leave your wingman. Where have I seen that before? Like, it's the real subtlety of these lines that are just like timed perfectly.
I think you and I both agree. Bob has some of the best lines in the movie.
Bob has like 10 lines, but they're all like zingers, and they're great.
What's your name, Bob? No, what's your call sign? Bob?
Yeah. And another thing, I didn't know to the end of the movie, it's actually Bill Pullman's kid. So if you guys don't know who that is, he is...
the
President of the United States in Independence Day. That's the best way I can explain it to you.
Actually flew in an F-18 in Independence Day, but on a movie set. But his son actually was flying in an F-18 in real life.
Oh, I didn't even, okay, that hit home. I didn't even think about that. Okay.
Yep.
But yeah, like the training sessions where they're doing the 200 push-ups, and it's just like him, like Tom Cruise just whooping their ass. And the way that the fact they used, who are you? That use of that song was amazing with the jets, like, and like just the song. Oh man, seeing that in theaters, guys, you've got to see it.
The rush, the sound. It's not just what's on the screen, but it's the actual sound and how it amplifies, and you feel the booms and the thuds in the theater. It's something that is an actual movie you have to see in theater before it's gone. Because I don't think unless you have a movie theater at home, your TV or your sound system can't do that movie its true justice.
Like, for example, I have like a 75-inch TV, and I feel even once I have my surround sound, it's still not going to be the same as seeing it in a theater.
Yep.
No matter how hard I try, it's just...
Yep.
It's not going to be the same. Unless I become a billionaire someday, and then...
Which we will. Don't worry. We'll get there.
We'll be billionaires by Top Gun 5. It'll be fine.
Well, I hope they don't do any more Top Guns. Please,
it'll be Rooster's kid flying with Maverick's grandson.
Leave it alone.
I have a feeling. I'm telling you right now, they're gonna make a third one.
No, don't.
And it's going to be terrible.
Don't, please.
I'm telling you, they're going to make a third one. Tom Cruise is going to direct it, but he's not going to be in it.
Oh my God, please.
I hope they don't. I just had this horrible feeling that they made such a massive amount of money off this. How could they not?
So, another thing I want to talk about is that, there's the 5th generation fighter jets, right?
Yeah.
From a rogue nation. They never mention what country it's from. But you're led to believe that it's either North Korea, Russia, could be China, right?
Yeah.
And people were saying, well, we have the F-35, right? Which is one of the best jets in the world. But we're using, I don't want to call it outdated, but the F-18, right? But why did they use the F-18 versus the F-35? It's because the F-35 is only a one-person aircraft, where the F-18 has 2 cockpits in it. So they can actually have the real pilots flying, and then you can have your actors behind flying the plane.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yep.
So that's actually pretty tight.
Yep.
But so yeah, guys. I mean, again, if you have seen it, go see it again. It's a fantastic film all the way around, and I'm gonna pre-order mine here next Thursday when I get paid. He already pre-ordered his copy. It's supposed to be coming out, I think, the middle of August. I think is the release date.
A few weeks.
So, I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Again, me and Evan could talk about this movie for hours, but it's too hot in here, and I'm very much sweating because I'm in a full suit here, basically. So, hope you guys enjoyed the cheesiness of us dressing up for the part here, but we enjoyed this episode. I hope you as well, Matthew.
Thanks, Sunshine.
So, Matt will be joining me again here for some more future episodes. So you will see and hear his lovely voice if you're listening or watching. We'll be talking about Amazon's Terminal List, starring Chris Pratt and Taylor Kitsch. I can never pronounce his name. The dude from John Carter. So we're gonna be going over that one because that show is freaking amazing, and we're gonna be talking about that one, and that's when you will see and hear from him next.
Yep.
So Cheeks, I appreciate you coming on, and
thanks for having me, man.
Again, we'll do this again very soon. And until next time, guys, I hope you've enjoyed your slice of pie.